My name is Brian Wayner, and I am the technology facilitator here at Kitty Hawk Elementary School. I've been here for about 15 years. One of the things that I really like about my job with technology is it's constantly changing. Last year, this new thing from Google came out. It's called Google Expedition, and I was really excited about it. It just came in. Now what we've done is we've purchased 30 kits, and each one of these kits has a cell phone, and it's got a viewer. Now a lot of people, when you look at the viewer right here, they'll say it looks like a ViewMaster because it is made by ViewMaster, the old-fashioned click. Now what they've done is they've made it so now instead of clicking and just dropping the slides in, you can now take things from the internet with this Google Expeditions and you can go anywhere you want to in the world.
I'm Jane Jennings, I'm in 4th grade and I did virtual reality today. I liked virtual reality because it's interesting and you don't know where you're going until you finally see it.
Hi, my name is Carver. I'm in the 4th grade at Kitty Hawk Elementary School. You put a mask on and you go to places that you've never been before. We went to France and we went to New York City and the North Pole. It's a new way of us to learn things.
The ability why we got this is we're not able to take a field trip to New York City. But this way, we can all go to New York City. As teachers study various things, one of the projects I'm working on right now, the teachers are working on landforms. Now, we're not going to be able to go see the Rocky Mountains. We're not going to be able to go see Mount Everest. But they're going to be coming to me, and we're going to Mount Everest. In the process, the kids are going to make passports, where they're going to have a passport in order to go on their trip to go there. And that's a whole different writing aspect that we've used. So it's such a new emerging technology. Teachers are coming up with all these cool ideas, and then we're seeing where we can go with it. But those are just a couple ideas that have happened in the last couple days. We went underwater last time. Yeah. Now we're going to go on land.
I see lots of rocks and stuff.
The first time a child put these on, it's so exciting to see their face. I'll never forget the first time I did it, I whipped my cell phone out of my pocket and I just instantly shot a video because I've been doing this for 15 years and it was probably the most exciting I'd seen kids. Virtual reality is just another way that Dare County Schools has been able to take technology, emerging technologies, introduce it to our students, our teachers, and get it out there so we're on the cutting edge of what's going on in the technology world.
I like the North Pole because I believe in Santa and Santa's awesome.
The Dare County campus of the College of the Albemarle is now offering an exciting new course in drone technology, an introduction to small unmanned aircraft systems. The course is 16 hours and meets twice a week with 2 hours for each class.
My name is Rob Nelson. I'm a continuing ed instructor here at the College of the Albemarle. When we get into our class, we talk about the latest in drone technology. We talk about what the FAA requires a flyer to have. But the exciting part is putting the controllers in the student's hand and getting them out in the field to get use of a drone for the first time. We have a lot of flyers that have never flown before. They don't really know anything about drone technologies.
Unmanned aerial systems will see wide use in a number of fields from agriculture and first response to real estate photography and construction inspections.
I'm an IT director for a realty company down here, and I'm learning how to fly drones to help our photography department. So this course is really beneficial. It gives you fundamentals in obtaining your FAA license.
The Federal Aviation Administration issued new regulations requiring a remote pilot certificate to anyone operating a drone for commercial purposes, including real estate agents, filmmakers, and public safety organizations.
For me, I didn't have any experience at all, so going into it, I didn't know really what to expect. But when I got in there, excellent instructor, Rob was very informed on the program, made us feel at ease, and got to just understand the drone and all about airspace.
Truthfully, we had no idea going into it until we actually got into the COA course, exactly what all the possibilities would be. And that was one of the strengths of having such a well-informed instructor who was presenting so much information. It gave us a lot of ideas and new perspectives.
In the field during flight time, you will learn ground safety practices, beginner flight techniques, and best filming practices for both photography and cinematography. There will be in-lab training for post-production for the footage the students capture in the field.
Flying a drone for the first time is a lot easier than people think. The drones fly themselves using GPS technology. So if the student feels like they're in an emergency situation, you let go of the controls, the drone stops, you take back over, take a deep breath. People are very nervous their first time, and once they realize how easy it is, they can practice their filming techniques.
After completing the course, a student can expect to have the resources to study for and pass the FAA remote pilot exam. The test is offered at our College of the Albemarle testing facility in Elizabeth City.
COA being able to offer it and able to actually give you hands-on drone experience, it's something you really don't see at many community colleges, and it's great.
So if you're interested in drones and aerial photography and videography, stop by the College of the Albemarle and find out more information.
For the last month, we've been out in the Outer Banks of North Carolina studying a steel-hulled shipwreck in the Pamlico Sound by Rodanthe, North Carolina. We're trying to identify the shipwreck and figure out exactly when it was built, what it was, and what it means to the community out here. We're also trying to make a final recording of it before the Bonner Bridge expansion could potentially impact the site in a negative way.
When we first looked at the Pappy's Lane shipwreck, it was quite interesting because it has a lot of shape to it. It has a lot of fineness at the bow, and then it comes to a very intact stern. We subsequently talked to some local people and they said that it was a barge, and so we took that at face value, and local people always have some information that's very important, but we were curious to know more. There was more to the story than that story. We had to go through this process of amassing sort of a hit list of potential ship types, and then to see whether those ships corresponded with the archaeological site. From the time that I looked at it with my students in 2010, it was pretty clear that it was a very good teaching opportunity. The shipwreck is in very shallow water, it's got an intact structure, and it's also an iron or steel shipwreck. And so we were then able to basically convince the North Carolina Department of Transportation that we could do an assessment at the same time that we carried out an educational program that would teach students how to record a shipwreck, how to use different technologies in that recording process, but also inform them in the legislative process, in the regulatory parts of the project, and really to have a really all-encompassing project from beginning to end, to talk about how the shipwreck is still relevant in today's life because it's in the way of a potential bridge construction, and to sort of think about all the different facets of studying a shipwreck. The Pappy's Lane project was an opportunity to use a range of different techniques and technologies. We were able to do very traditional drawing, whether it's plan view drawing, profile drawing with a range of different methods, but we also looked at photogrammetry, we also did drone-based photogrammetry, we used total stations, we were doing gradiometry, we were able to look at metal detection to look for subsurface metal. So we were able to use a lot of different overlapping and complementary techniques to do a really comprehensive job of assessing the extent of the shipwreck site.
The way that we study this shipwreck is we are working to record it. We are making a site plan, a site map. So we go out there during the day. It's our field school, our field work. We go out there, we set a baseline. Essentially, it's a way for us to make sure that we're getting proper measurements, and we do perpendicular offsets. So we're making sure that we get all of the features that we see, whether that's debris or that's still articulated features of the wreck itself.
So you take super accurate recordings, you measure with rhino rules and baselines and tape measures, and you draft that onto a piece of mylar that's attached to a slate in the water, and then you take that and you bring it back to your lab and you piece it together like a puzzle, and then the mylars, when they match up, you connect them and then you draft it onto a graph paper to make your site plan.
A really unique part of this field school that we've all gotten to experience is dredging, which is an excavation technique that's used to clear sediment off of a site underwater. Essentially, it's a underwater vacuum that's attached to a water pump that we keep up on the boat. And that allows us to remove sediment and actually get at what's underneath, which you can't see with just the naked eye.
So the most important activity that we really engaged in to help us determine the type of ship this was the excavation of the stern. We noticed these cavities. These cavities are called tunnels, and the Pappy's Lane wreck is what you might call a tunnel boat, right? Tunnel boats are something that we're used to out here on the Outer Banks. They're a feature of vessels that run in very shallow water. A tunnel allows you to protect your propeller if you run aground. And so we found that double tunnel, and we could see where there was a central sort of keel that came out in the stern. And then we went and we started doing some historical research, and we came across these two related vessel types called the Landing Craft Infantry, or the LCI, and the Landing Craft Support, or the LCS. And at that point, we actually were able to find photographs and blueprints that showed some other features at the stern that were very, very definitively attached to these vessels, which were amphibious assault craft during the Second World War. So at the end of the field school, we were 100% certain that this is an LCI or an LCS. The challenge that we have is that we have a very degraded hull. The main difference between an LCI and an LCS is the upper structure, is whether it has a ramp or it has some kind of evidence of men running out or not running out, and that material is gone. We have a problem in that we have over 1,000 vessels. We have to whittle down that list of LCIs and LCSs to see which ones we know were sunk in battles or scuttled after the war or are now in foreign navies or were repurposed into fishing craft, which ones were here to become the Pappy's Lane wreck. As of today, we still have a lot of candidates to exclude. And we can go through that process and whittle them down one by one, but we've still probably got hundreds of vessels to account for. The other approach is to pick the most promising candidates, the candidates that have a story proximal to here, and that we can then follow their story, and perhaps they become the candidate that ends up here and becomes the Pappy's Lane wreck. And right now, that's what we're doing. We have a very small number of very promising candidates, in particular LCS craft, that were operating in this area and that are very highly likely, or the most likely candidates to have become something that became the Pappy's Lane wreck. And so we're particularly interested because of the local story about the barge, this being a barge, to look at vessels that were converted into barges. And we have stories of LCS craft converted into different types of barges in the Chesapeake area, and that perhaps were sold here in a very, very late part of their lives to be used for a very specialized purpose, where they were just bought for very cheaply in order to do something like help salvage a gravel barge that had run ashore in Rodanthe in the early to mid 1960s. The potential for this vessel is that it's turned out to be a World War II craft, and while North Carolina has a lot of World War II vessels, there's nothing in 3 feet of water accessible to shore, and so it's an opportunity for people who don't scuba dive to interact with it. It's an opportunity to learn about things like the Second World War or American shipbuilding in the 1940s in a very easily accessible place. It's also important, I think, because it's an ecosystem. There is life there to see. It's quite a dynamic place. It's in a location that very few shipwrecks have been looked at. It's actually the first shipwreck reported to the State Underwater Archaeology Branch, which indicates how little Pamlico Sound has been explored.